Hi. So this week we were doing organizational network analysis, or ONA, and these kinds of images can be used to help study different communication networks that are in an organization, and it kind of is a model of either people, different groups, how knowledge spreads, how resources spread, etc. And basically just how we can understand interactions in a group. So in order to plot this, we have to use the iGraph function. So I'm going to library that. And then the next step I'm going to take is creating an object. So I already created my data outside of R. And so I'm using this from existing data. The graph data frame right here is pulling that from my data. So I'll tell you how these are kind of connected here. So the function D is taking the edges, which are the lines, and then those connect to different nodes. So you'll see these as circles, pulling from my department data frame. So I have two different columns that show kind of connections between the different vertices. So that'll show connections when you see my plot. And then the vertices are taking the different employee nodes from the participant data frame, so the different employees used in this network, and they're identified. They identify the variables to the different edges. So once again, are the lines, and the nodes are the circles. And then finally, directionality. I didn't use directionality in mine. So if you're looking at interactions between people, we're assuming that it's two-way. So you could do this with one-way interaction. So this is kind of more common in like a student to teacher interaction. So most likely the student is receiving more information from the teacher. There's not really that kind of built-in feedback, two-way communication. So the directionality for mine is false. We're assuming that the people are just sharing information back and forth. So after we've created our object, we can plot this. So we use the function plot, and then we put in the name of the object created above, and we're going to run this. And then to the right, you will see the plot and be able to see the interactions between the different people. And then from here, we can just look at it and kind of see maybe where there might be some issues in communication. Obviously, Nick is far out here to the side, only has a connection with one person, Coach, and then how information might travel through this. But you can look at numerical values behind who is kind of affiliated with who within the organizational network analysis. Another way to do this, there was mentioned online, was like through a saturation survey, which is basically a way to get information about the interaction. So if you were plotting this and presenting it to someone, or you wanted just more information, you kind of would want to get that information about the two-way interactions. So the different ways to do this are through centrality. So starting with degree centrality, it's used to determine just the general number of connections between nodes. So you'll see this, use the degree function, put in your object, and then you're calculating from all. So you can see down here the number of connections each person has. So like we said before, Nick only has one, Schmidt has the most with 4, and then the other people in the group. So you can kind of see who has the most connections, and then over here you can see exactly where they meet up and who those connections are with. Another way to do this is through closeness centrality. So that kind of evaluates just the proximity of the nodes to all other nodes in the network. It takes into consideration the number of nodes, and then the mathematical formula for how they calculate it is through the inverse of the average lengths of all the short paths between all of the nodes. So taking all that into consideration. So use the closeness function. Once again, add in your object, taking from all weights. We're not doing this, and then we're saying that it's true, it is normalized. So from here you can see the values below. Who has the lowest? We still see that Nick has the lowest. So these, the proximity of the nodes. So Schmidt's the closest to everyone. And then you can see it gives you a little bit more information than just the number of nodes you're connected to. And this would be more important if there were more connections and obviously more nodes. It could offer more information. And then finally, betweenness. So the betweenness centrality is just evaluating the centrality of all the nodes, but it can help identify different like choke points through which the information may move in the system. So it considers the different paths that connect, and it's summing the betweenness of all the pairs. So identifies potentially problematic areas where information could kind of die or get stuck. So these lower numbers show us that information is flowing through certain people, but may not be. It could be an endpoint in communication. All right. So what can we actually do with this? A lot of the information that I read about O&A right now is working through like diversity and kind of integration of groups. It can be used to like evaluate potentially like psych safety. And then it can be coupled with surveys to kind of give us more information. So one of the articles I looked at was looking at engagement and just helping us understand the results a little bit more. But basically how we can use these to find problems about sharing knowledge and how information travels through a system. So very similar to what we talked about in class. It could be very problematic if there's only a interaction with one person. So Nick in this situation, if he's only receiving information from one person, or if you want to think of it the other way, that one person is only receiving the information he has. So if we were looking at these as different like projects, and the people working on projects, although they're in different departments, they don't have a lot of overlap and information can get lost that could be really important for everyone in the group to know. So this can kind of help show us how we can maybe better integrate and create more connections between people in the organization. All right, bye.